FPL double game week 28 transfer targets. Today, we're going to have a look at who the players you need to be considering buying into your teams this week. We'll talk, of course, about the two teams with a double game week in Luton and in Bournemouth as well. We'll talk about whether you need to buy certain players depending on your chip strategy, and we'll have a look at a few other players you should consider, even those without a double. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here. And the data taken from all of these videos when I produce them every single week is very kindly provided by Fantasy Football Scout, who are sponsoring this video. Now, if you want to get, it is close to the end of the season, but it is the time where planning, making the right decisions is so important with the upcoming doubles and blanks. And if you want to have the chance of catching your friend in your mini league or getting that final bit to get over the line, do consider signing up. They are still offering discounts between now and the end of the season. Now, what you're going to do in game week 29 in the blank game week will drastically change the players that you are going to buy into your team over the next couple of weeks. So game week 29 has, of course, been confirmed. There are 4 fixtures that will take place in game week 29, as you can see here: Burnley, Brentford, Luton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, Spurs, and West Ham versus Aston Villa. Now, if you are going to play your free hit in game week 29, you have a bigger pool of players that you can go and buy into your team this week. But if you are playing one of the chip strategies that you don't free hit game week 29, so strategy 2 and strategy 4 here, you do need to go and consider those players in a lot more detail, and you really need to be considering all of your transfers being used on players with a fixture in game week 28 and game week 29 as well. So if you're looking at the double game week players, you probably need to consider Luton more than Bournemouth, right? Because Luton have the doubling game week 28 and then a fixture in game week 29. There's not much used this week in buying loads of Bournemouth players if you're not free hitting in game week 29, because every team just has 2 fixtures, game week 28 and game week 29. Bournemouth just have both of them this week, but then you'd be in a difficult position next week. However, if you're free hitting in game week 29, Bournemouth become a little bit more of a priority, right? Because they have the double this week. You don't need to worry about them next week, and then they have a nice run of fixtures going forward as well. Now, to start off by looking at Bournemouth, and just to highlight how good their fixture run is, all of their next 4 games come at home, outside of course the blanking game week 29, and then in game week 32 after that they go to Luton as well. So if you are free hitting in game week 29, buying into Bournemouth players at the moment is a very, very good idea. Now, who should you be going and buying this week? Of course, Dominic Solanke is the number one. To cover off his injury, he has been carrying a knock for quite a while, and he started against Burnley at the weekend, but he was definitely not fully fit. If you watch that game, he was definitely not fully there. But it is a big game for Bournemouth, and so are the Sheffield United and Luton games over the next couple of weeks. Because if they win both those, they'll be on 37 points. And we're not really considering Bournemouth for relegation, but if they win both of those, they'll put any sort of doubt to bed in that one. So I do expect Solanke to play both. If you have your triple captain left, and you have all your other chips left, then I would play your triple captaincy on Dominic Solanke this week. Now, there are other picks. In defence, it's probably Zabanyi for me. Now, there are a few others that you can go and consider. Zabanyi is the most nailed. It sounds like Senesi is going to be out until after the international break at least. So that makes Metham at 4.3 million another good option that you can go and consider. But it doesn't sound likely that Senesi is out for a very long period of time, which means that Metham might become an issue as soon as game week 30 and onwards. So I would go Zabanyi. He's only 0.1 more anyway. At left back, I really do like Kerkez, and it sounds like Kelly is a similar time frame to that of Senesi. However, if you are free hitting in game week 29 and are going to wildcard late, there is a chance that Kelly is back, and that makes Kerkez a doubt. That is a similar situation at right back with Smith and Aarons as well. So there are more attacking options, there are more explosive options, but I do think it's sensible if you're free hitting in game week 29 and going to delay the wildcard to just get the most nailed option for the long term, which is Zabanyi. Now, if you are not free hitting in game week 29, there's only one real option in defence that I would buy, and that is Neto, as long as you have another keeper, like an Areola, like a Leno, like a Vicario, anyone that has a fixture in game week 29. Because if you're buying a goalkeeper this week, and you don't have a keeper that plays in game week 29, you need to buy the Luton goalkeeper in Kaminsky. But if you have an Areola who can play in 29, Neto is the number one keeper to buy this week, and I do really like him. However, if you've got Areola and Dubravka, I don't think it's worth a -4. If you've got nothing else to do and want to do Dubravka to Neto with your 1 free transfer, fine. But I don't think Neto is worth a -4 over Areola, who just has Burnley at home this week. Now, into midfield, there are so many options, and it's kind of luck of the draw at the moment. The two that I'd really talk about is Kluivert, who did score last game and is just 4.6 million, and then Tavernier as well. The issue is they have so many midfielders and wingers that there is going to be rotation over these couple of games. There will be someone who doesn't start both. Bournemouth fans are calling for Sinistera to start some of these games as well, and he has been good when he's come on as a substitute. Now, there are options like Cook, but Cook did get a couple of returns last game. I don't massively love it. He didn't get many returns previously, and just the recent returns doesn't necessarily make him a good asset. Now, there will be one of these that goes off. One of them will get a goal, an assist, a couple of bonus points, and look like a great asset. But I find it really difficult to predict who it's going to be. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go Tavernier. But unless you're chasing rank, unless you need a big differential this week, I probably wouldn't bother with the Bournemouth midfield. I'd go Solanke up front, and I'd look at least one defender, and then, of course, Neto in goal. Now, if you're not free hitting in 29, then Luton become much bigger priorities, of course, because they have the double in game week 28 and then a guaranteed fixture in game week 29 as well. Plus, the fixtures after that are okay, like away at Spurs, if you had an attacker you could play. They have Bournemouth at home in game week 32 as well. Like, they're better for game week 29, but the long-term fixtures are not as good. So if you are ending into game week 29 and you can wildcard all of these Luton players out, they are very good players to buy, but if you're free hitting, then you look more at Bournemouth. Now, again, there are players all across the pitch. If you need a goalkeeper in game week 29, Kaminsky is a great shout. Not many clean sheets, but he makes a lot of saves. I've got him in my team, and the amount of saves he racks up often puts him near the bonus points as well. In defence, Alfie Doughty is the obvious one. He's 4.7 million. He's good for attacking returns as well, as we saw. And the amount of chances he creates, he often gets bonus when he gets those attacking returns as well. Now, elsewhere in the Luton defence, I probably wouldn't double up. I think doubling up on two defenders is not a good idea. Kaminsky and Doughty is okay, but Doughty and another defender I wouldn't really bother with. There's no one that really adds loads of attacking threat. You could add Kabore, who's playing right wing back, but the issue with him is we don't know for certain if he's going to play both in the double. Mengi at centre-back is probably the most nailed of the defenders outside of Doughty. But again, there's no attacking returns there. Do you expect a clean sheet in the double? Probably not. So Kaminsky and Doughty are fine, but elsewhere in defence, I wouldn't bother. Into midfield, there are a few picks. Barkley is the most nailed, but Chong does have the more attacking threat. With the injury to Lokonga, Barkley is playing a little bit deeper, but he is a little bit more nailed. Now, Chong has looked really good. He did pick up a slight knock, so if you are going to buy him, do wait until the press conference. But to be honest, the main asset to look at if you're going up front is Morris. Morris looks nailed at the moment. Even with Adebayo playing and whether he's going to be fit or not, Morris feels nailed. He's on penalties as well. And I think he's got 4 goals actually in his last 5 starts. So very good up front. And I do think the likes of a Haaland to a Morris move, if you're not free hitting in game week 29, is quite a sensible thing to do. You add a fixture this week. You add a fixture in game week 29. How wrong could that transfer possibly go? So I wouldn't worry about the Luton midfield. If you have an injured Hwang and you want to punt on it, potentially go for it. But it is up front again in Morris, in defence in Doughty, and in goal Kaminsky over Neto if you need him in game week 29. Now to look at a few others. The first one is at West Ham. Of course, guaranteed to play in game week 29 at home to Aston Villa. And a good fixture this week at home to Burnley. And that is Emerson. If you're not buying a double game week defender this week and you need a defender for game week 29, Emerson does need to be up there in terms of consideration. The clean sheets have not been great. Only 5 clean sheets so far this season, but 2 home fixtures, right? That he is good going forward. He's got a couple of attacking returns recently, 4 for the season, 0.12 expected attacking returns per 90. It's not amazing. But if you look at the fixtures in game week 29, I don't massively look at any and think there's solid clean sheet potential there. So I look at them this week and think Burnley at home is a good fixture. Now, I would buy Alfie Doughty over buying Emerson, but if you've already bought Doughty and you're looking for another defender this week that plays in game week 29, I do think the fixture this week for West Ham and being at home next week is probably worth punting on him. Moving up the pitch into midfield, it is Son Heung-min of Spurs, 9.8 million, but is playing up front for Spurs at the moment. When Spurs played Aston Villa earlier on in the season, we spent basically all week talking about how Son is going to do well against the high line of Aston Villa, and that's who he's got again this week. And I do think playing up front again, he can continue to do well. The fixtures for the long term are nice. It does look like Richarlison is going to be out until the international break, although Richarlison himself apparently told the Brazilian media that he's going to be back sooner, but I think that's just to try and get himself in the Brazil squad. I do really like Son, and if you are free hitting in game week 29 or not, he still remains a really good buy with the fixtures coming up. 13 goals, 6 assists for him so far this season. The returns are really good, particularly when he's playing up front, which he is doing at the moment. Elsewhere in midfield, the Paqueta effect is in full force at West Ham. Now, I like Paqueta, I like Kudus, but if you're buying a West Ham midfield at the moment, it does feel like it needs to be Jared Bowen. He is the one, although Paqueta makes them tick and we've seen them change going forward since he's been back, Bowen is the one that is the FPL output for me. Now, you might get lucky on a Kudus or a Paqueta that is their game, but in terms of consistency, I would be going with Bowen. Burnley at home this week, Villa at home next week, then Newcastle away, who have been pretty poor defensively. I do really like the look of their upcoming fixtures. Now, you are looking, if you are buying a midfielder that you need for next week, you might consider a Barkley, a Luton player, some of the others we've got in there, Son as well. But I do think Bowen is a better buy than the doubling midfielders from Luton. I do think he'll outscore them. Now, if you have the money to go up to a Son, he's probably better than Bowen. But again, if you're planning for game week 29, looking at the next two fixtures, Bowen should definitely be back in consideration given the Paqueta form we are seeing. And then we look up front. Now, there are so many forwards up front at the moment in Morris, Haaland, of course, Watkins and Solanke. But if you're looking for someone a little bit different and you're not free hitting in game week 29, I really like Muniz of Fulham. Wolves away this week, who are full of injuries. Spurs at home in game week 29, who are leaking goals. Then Sheffield United away in game week 30. He has nailed down that Fulham spot, a goal and an assist in the most recent game, and his points per 90 is 6.25. He has been so good for them. Now, if you're looking to try and restructure your squad a little bit to try and fit in Haaland, Salah, Son, Saka, maybe some of those other premiums in midfield as well, like Odegaard, having him up front could be a good option. The upcoming fixtures are really nice. There's no real fixture in there that I'm massively scared about starting him. Even the two grey fixtures of Spurs and Newcastle are both at home as well, where Fulham are much better. So a lot of us are not going to be buying him because we have other forwards we want, but he should be one to consider this week. And then if you are free hitting in game week 29, to be honest, most of the transfers for free hit 29ers this week will be looking at Bournemouth players, whether it's in defence, in goal, midfield or up front. But if you don't want to buy any more Bournemouth and you're actually in a position like me, where you have a couple of Bournemouth, you don't really want any more, Chelsea are actually a couple of players that I think you should be considering. So the first one is Malo Gusto, 4.2 million and a reasonable differential. Newcastle at home this week isn't fantastic, but from game week 30 onwards, United at home, Burnley at home, Sheffield United away and Everton at home, good fixtures, and Gusto looks really good going forward. We are expecting Reece James back in and around April, mid to late April is the prediction at the moment. So do watch out for Poch's press conference. But with that run of fixtures, I do think Gusto could be a really good shout. The other one, of course, is Palmer. If you are looking to buy a midfielder this week and you are free hitting in game week 29 and you don't own Palmer, he still looks like such a good option. When game week 30 comes around, we'll be wanting transfers to buy Liverpool, to be looking at potentially buying more Manchester City in game week 31. There are other transfers we will want in game week 30 and 31 that if you don't own Chelsea assets for their run, they won't be priorities. So if you have a spare transfer this week and you're looking to buy someone that doesn't double this week and you can hold long term, Chelsea are top for fixtures coming up. Now, to be honest, most of the transfers we've spoken about will be revolving around buying Luton players or Bournemouth players going into the upcoming week, but we've covered a few other players in this video that do have good fixtures coming up, whether you're free hitting in game week 29 or not free hitting in game week 29. As I said, do bear your chip strategy in mind with who you're going to buy this week. It's not just as simple as I recommend player A and he is a good buy this week. It depends when you're free hitting and maybe when you're wildcarding as well. But leave any questions. I know there's lots going around at the moment in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. 1,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here, and we'll be back again very soon.